Today, we have our third guest from Mississauga Physio. I'd like to welcome Trevor Da Silva to the podcast. Trevor, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having us on your podcast. We hope we can help all your audience and everyone around you with some good information, I hope.
No, you guys have been absolutely fantastic so far. Obviously, speaking with Albert and DJ, and they were wonderful. So I think you're going to be just as good, if not better than they are right now. So why don't we get right into it? So, Trevor, can you tell myself and the audience listening right this second a little bit about your journey and what you currently do at Mississauga Physio?
So I'm actually a section off Mississauga Physio called orthobility bracing. What we do is the bracing for individuals that need some kind of orthotic intervention. So it could be anything from foot orthotics to knee braces that we've provided for some of the Brampton Beasts, to some arm splints that we provided to some of the therapists that work for the Brampton Beast, scoliosis bracing, all kinds of bracing from head to toe. I've been doing this for about 20 years and we take pride in what we do, and we try to help the clients, audience to get better.
No, that's fantastic. And can you talk to me a little bit about some of the Beast players that you've worked on bracing wise, maybe a Jordan Henry or a Brandon Marino, those kind of types?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys that got injured, and obviously not this past year. Unfortunately, the COVID hit and they weren't able to play. But before that, there was a couple of your athletes that injured their knees. Both of them, I think, had ACL injuries. And so what we did was we provided through the Brampton Beast custom ACL bracing to help the knees, the ACL ligament heal after surgery, but also provide some support while they're playing hockey if they felt they needed it at the beginning until their rehab was finished. We also provided a scooter for one of them who couldn't put any weight on his leg and didn't want to use crutches. So it's kind of cool to watch him scooting around with his wheel thing. It was pretty funny. Of course, he's a skater and he's a good player, so he didn't want to go slow, and that was hard to watch.
Yes, of course. I think that one was Brandon Marino. I kind of remember
that was Brandon, yeah.
Scooting around the rink a little bit, but still being faster than me on two legs. So
oh no, they were amazing. Those athletes are great, very hospitable. They just wanted to get better. They wanted to get back on the rink and play hard. So it was great to work with them.
Can you tell me a little bit about maybe the process of fitting them for a brace, or the different kind of ththings that come along with that?
So great question. So what we do is there's various different braces out on the market. We tend to use DonJoy and the VQ, but there's probably at least 5 or 6 other braces that are used for ACL injuries. Most of the time you take measurements or a scan, and from that the brace is made usually in the States. It's sent back up here, and then we fit it on the client. A lot of the braces have a lifetime warranty on the frame, so that works well. I think one of your players also had an older brace that we didn't even fit. I think it was about 4 to 5 years old, and it broke. So they brought it in. I called up the sales rep from DonJoy. He said, yeah, lifetime warranty. That gentleman got a brand new brace with a whole new color scheme that he wanted. So it was perfect.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sure that made them happy that day.
Oh, yeah.
Are braces only common for knee injuries, or is there anything in the upper body where a brace would be required?
Great question. So like I said earlier, we do bracing from head to toe. So we have even infants that have a flat spot on their head. And if it's caught early enough, we actually make helmets for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What else do? We do neck splints for those that have hurt their necks in an injury. We do hand splints for those that have carpal tunnel symptoms and have had fractures in their arms or fingers. We do scoliosis braces, which is if a client has a curve in their back. Those are usually teenagers. And then, of course, we get into knee braces and foot braces and foot orthotics as well.
Have you ever dealt with a player that doesn't have an injury that would still want to wear a brace, or is it only when you're hurt and coming back that you would be fitted for a brace?
Yeah, great question. We try not to put bracing on athletes because it ends up or can end up being a crutch. What we try to do is encourage them to go through physio to get the area or the muscles in that area stronger so that they don't need to wear a brace. If we use a brace at all in those cases, it's more for a psychological aspect. and then hopefully they're weaned off it by themselves or through therapy so that they don't have to rely on it.
What's just in your opinion or your experience, what's the most major injury that you've had to deal with?
For athletes?
Sure.
So most athletes, we see a lot of basketball players, hockey, obviously, soccer players, and the majority of it is the ACL, right? ACL tears. And surprisingly, it could be, 13, 14-year-old girls and boys that play the sports up to, their mid-20s and 30s, some in their 40s that just twisted the wrong way and they tear their ligament. So that's the majority of the injuries we see. We see ankle injuries as well. So we may have to do an ankle brace for those that sprain their ankles. Ankles and knees, I would say, are the majority.
And does the treatment differ from athlete to athlete, sport to sport, or would a hockey player with an ACL injury be treated as a basketball player with the same ACL injury?
Excellent question. It depends on the severity of the ACL injury. If it's a complete tear, it's usually a custom brace. If it's a partial tear, it might be just a sleeve. But again, we go back to, let's get some physio. Let's see if we can keep that leg strong so that you don't have to rely on some kind of a device to protect. But for the majority of ACL injuries, whether you're an athlete or a non-athlete, it's pretty well the same, depending again on the severity.
Now, this may sound just, I don't know a lot of this topic. That's why I brought you in as the expert here, but what are the braces made out of?
Excellent question. Some of them are titanium, some of them are carbon composite. Mm-hmm. The whole idea of these braces is you try to keep them light. So if you watch, most of your audience probably watch a lot of NFL, and a lot of those guys are wearing knee braces, not just because they had an ACL injury, but they're also trying to prevent injuries. So those braces have to be light. So usually like a titanium for non-contact, but contact, it's like a carbon composite metal combination, and they have to be strong because if you get hit on the side and it bends, that means that the leg is going to be damaged as well.
Actually, I kind of want to go off that because that made me think. You were saying that sometimes you would these athletes, like a football player, would maybe wear a brace not only because they've had the injury, but because they're trying to prevent future ones. Is that a common thing that athletes will be wearing braces as a preventative measure for future injuries?
Yeah, great question. And in certain sports, like contact sports, like football for sure, especially those big linemen that are getting tackled and hit on the side of the knee, some of them will wear a bracing just to prevent. In terms of hockey, I don't think any hockey player is going to want to wear a brace unless they have to, because it does prevent certain movements or slow down certain movements. So I think most of the elite athletes like the Brampton Beasts are going to want to wear nothing so that they can have the experience of just feeling free and the speed that they always have, as opposed to being slowed down by a brace.
No, that's perfect. So let me take this a slightly different direction. With everything COVID right now, and maybe like myself or just an average Joe, we haven't really been able to get out to the gym or kind of maintain that usual lifestyle, which was a lot of go, go, go. Is there anything in your experience that you could recommend that myself or anybody else listening could do physically just to kind of put themselves in the right mindset, or try to break up the day of sitting at a desk the entire time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually a track coach. So I coach kids track and field, and we're still outside. So what I would suggest, since gyms are closed, and unless you have a personal gym at home, get outside. It's not that bad. If you don't want to run, just walking up even a hill, you can get good cardio just walking up a hill, and do that a few times a day, or even stairs outside. Go with a friend, keeping distance. You can go for a jog. There's a lot of things you can do outside right now that will break the monotony of sitting in front of a desk and also keep you healthy.
That's a perfect response. And actually that's going to a perfect segue into my next question as well, which was, what are some just good exercises or little things that people could do to maintain a healthy lifestyle, especially with everything going on with Ontario about to go back into a full lockdown?
Crazy, isn't it?
Yes.
I tell you, it depends on how fit the person is. So if they haven't done very much, they go to the gym and just do a few weights here and there, I would say just start with walking. I can guarantee if you walk up a hill like High Park or any of those places where they have just subtle hills, you don't have to go up a big hill. You will be breathing pretty hard going up. Lunges up a hill as well, lunges on the flat, and even just a quick brisk walk in some cases. If you're an athlete, then I would say get out there and run up some hills, do some squats, jump squats, do some stairs. All that stuff keeps you fit, keeps your mind healthy too, right?
No, that's great. And actually, it's a beautiful segue into the next one, which is what does mental and physical health mean to you?
Okay, I'm going to go back to coaching. So coaching is tough because I have some athletes that are absolutely amazing, but they don't want to work hard. So that's where the mental part comes in. If you don't have the best mental attitude, it's very frustrating to see some of these kids that are so talented but that don't want to work hard. So even if you were talking about your earlier question about actually going out and exercising, you have to be determined. You have to want to go do it. You want to have to do it for the right reasons, which is for your health. So they do go hand in hand. If you ask a lot of the Brampton Beast athletes, the best, the better, or the best of the best, they're probably in tune to diet, mental strength, mental focus, and also fitness. And you got to have all of those if you want to be an athlete. But if you want to be just a weekend and just want to be fit, a weekend warrior or fit throughout the week, mental attitude, you got to get out there. It's like brushing your teeth. You got to make time for yourself because work will always be there. As we got to make time, at least 20 minutes for yourself. And I think you would, most people will feel refreshed and better afterwards.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I guess I know what I'm going to do right after this interview then.
I hope I do too then.
So my last little line of questioning here is, you would again mention the Beast players in there, but I wanted you to just maybe break down some of the injuries that you had seen and maybe the rehab that they went through or when they came and got their braces fitted. Just, are you able to break down maybe like Brandon Marino and with his scooter and all that stuff? I think that'd be really interesting for the viewers.
Yeah, so I didn't see a lot of the breakdown as far as therapy, but I could see the frustration. I mean, these guys are high caliber athletes that train really hard and really hard through the off season and through the regular season to hone their skills to be the best player they can. And then all of a sudden they get an injury, right? So it's kind of devastating for their whole world, right? So if we think about a career kind of ending, our own career that is not going well and we have to move on, these guys, this is a livelihood right now. And it's hard on them to deal with it. But like Brandon Marino and some of the other guys, they take the bull by the horns. They're determined to get better and they push themselves, right? And sometimes you have to slow down these exceptional athletes because what they want to do is better faster.
Yes.
Physiology is going to dictate how long certain things take, but some of these guys are amazing. They can beat that time frame that says you have to wait 3 weeks before you get back and do the right things and just pushing a bit harder. They get in, they get back quick. And that's because they're, like you talked about, mental focus, physical focus, mentally focused to get better, and they get healthier sooner in many cases because they're determined.
Oh, it's wonderful. And that's going to lead perfectly into my final question for you now is, if you're dealing with an athlete who maybe this is the first time they've gotten an ACL injury, it's the first time they're ever going to wear a brace, and they're feeling really overwhelmed with the whole thing, it's all new and scary, what would you say to them to put them in the right mindset?
Yeah, it's a great question because, again, we talked about these athletes that when they play, they're playing with, the regular padding that you have to use for hockey, and now all of a sudden you're throwing a brace on it. It's not easy to get used to. So I usually say just bear with it, practice with it, get used to it first. You're not going to like it at first, but it's going to give you a certain amount of security and support until you don't need it ever again. So it does take time for them to get used to it because, again, they're athletes and they want to be as fast and fluid as they possibly can be. But this does restrict a little bit of motion until they get used to it. But a lot of them will persevere. They'll get used to it first, and then gradually they'll be skating really hard with these braces. And then hopefully at some point they take them off and they don't need them anymore.
And one final question for you. Have you ever had to wear a brace for any kind of injury?
I had to wear, well, I had ACL surgery from soccer. That was about 7 or 8 years ago. And I did not like wearing a brace, but I did not like the pain that was associated with the ACL, because at the time I thought, wow, I'm in good shape. It's not going to hurt. It hurt. But yeah, but after doing the rehab, and it was worth it because I wouldn't change not taking the surgery. I'm glad I did. And if you wear the brace, you do the physio, you should be back to being as good as you were before, as long as the surgery went well as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Trevor, so much. I could honestly keep you on here for an entire hour, but I know that you have a very busy day ahead of you. And I just wanted to say thank you again so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Anthony, it was my pleasure. And hopefully we can help anyone that has any questions in the future. And you guys keep up the great work. You're doing great work with the Brampton Beast, and continue on with these trying times.
No, thank you very much. And to you as well. You guys are amazing. And I'd love to have you back on because I'm sure that there's going to be a ton of questions off this, and people are going to be very appreciative. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have left. That's the episode. We're done. And thank you very much for everybody listening in to this episode of the Blue Post Podcast. We'll be back for the next in our wellness and mobility series.